The phone rang at 2:47 a.m. Detective Sarah Chen knew nothing good ever came from calls at that hour. But when she answered and heard the trembling voice on the other end, she had no idea this case would become the one that changed everything. "Please," the voice whispered. "You have to help me. They're coming back." Before we dive into the story, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I love connecting with viewers from around the world. This is a story about choices, about how one decision, made in the span of seconds, can ripple through lives like a stone thrown into still water. It's about Marcus Webb, a man who thought his life was over. About Detective Sarah Chen, who learned that justice isn't always found in courtrooms. And about a little girl named Emma who proved that hope can survive even in the darkest places. Marcus Webb sat on the edge of his bed at the Riverside Motel, staring at the pills in his hand. 42 years old, divorced, unemployed for 8 months, and down to his last $127. The eviction notice for his apartment was final. His ex-wife had moved on with someone successful. His daughter, Lily, barely spoke to him anymore during their supervised visits. He'd been a mechanical engineer once, good at his job, respected. Then the company downsized, and at 42 he was too expensive to hire elsewhere but too young to retire. His savings evaporated. His marriage crumbled. His confidence died a slow, painful death with each rejected job application. The pills were supposed to make it stop hurting. But then he heard it, through the paper-thin walls of room 12. A child crying. Not the normal tears of a tired kid, but something desperate. Terrified, Marcus set down the pills and pressed his ear to the wall. "Please, I want my mommy." The voice was small, maybe 6 or 7 years old. "Shut up." A man's voice, harsh and cold. "Your mommy ain't coming. Nobody's coming." "But you said." The sound of a slap. Then silence more terrible than any scream. Marcus's hands shook. This wasn't his problem. He had his own hell to deal with. The smart thing was to mind his business, take the pills, and let the darkness finally claim him. But his hand reached for his phone instead. Detective Sarah Chen was on her 3rd cup of coffee when the call came in. Anonymous tip. Possible child endangerment at the Riverside Motel, room 13. The caller, a male voice, shaky but determined, wouldn't give his name. "Room 13, he'd said. "There's a little girl. Brown hair, pink pajamas. 2 men. One has a scar across his left eyebrow. They're holding her. Please hurry." Then he'd hung up. Sarah had been a detective for 12 years. She'd seen things that haunted her dreams. But child cases? Those were different. Those demanded everything she had. She arrived at the Riverside Motel with backup within 8 minutes. The motel was the kind of place people went to disappear. Peeling paint, flickering neon sign, more secrets than guests. The manager, a tired man named Frank, checked his records. "Room 13? Yeah, 2 guys checked in yesterday. Paid cash. No names I could verify. And the girl." Frank's face went pale. "There was a girl? I didn't see any girl." Sarah's jaw tightened. "Open the room." But when they burst through the door of room 13, it was empty. Completely empty except for a child's pink slipper left on the bathroom floor. "They ran," Sarah said, her mind racing. "They heard us coming and ran." "Detective." One of the officers held up a wallet found under the bed. "ID says Robert Morrison. He's got a record. Kidnapping. Assault. He did 8 years and got out 6 months ago." Sarah's stomach dropped. This wasn't a custody dispute. This was real. A child was in danger, and they'd just lost their chance to save her. "Pull camera footage from every building within 5 blocks, she ordered. "Contact Highway Patrol. Get an Amber Alert ready. And find out who made that call." Marcus watched from his window as police flooded the motel. His hand still gripped his phone. He'd done the right thing, hadn't he? Called for help. Let the professionals handle it. But the little girl's voice wouldn't leave his head. "You said my mommy was coming." He'd heard the men moving in the room after he called. Scrambling, cursing, then silence. They'd left through the back, he was sure of it, which meant the police had arrived too late. Marcus looked at the pills on his nightstand. His easy exit, his escape from pain. Then he looked at his phone. At the local news already breaking the story. Amber Alert. Emma Rodriguez, age 6, kidnapped from her home in Oakwood 3 days ago. Last seen wearing pink pajamas. 3 days. This little girl had been in the room next to him for 3 days while he wallowed in his own misery. He opened his laptop, the one thing he hadn't sold yet, and started digging. He'd spent 20 years solving mechanical problems, finding patterns in chaos. Maybe he could find a pattern here. The news reports mentioned Emma's father, Daniel Rodriguez, was a local prosecutor. High-profile cases. Made enemies. The kidnapping was suspected retaliation. Marcus pulled up everything he could find. Court cases. Names. Associates. Robert Morrison had been convicted by Daniel Rodriguez 7 years ago. Released 6 months ago. And Morrison had a brother, Derek Morrison. Current address. Unknown. Last known association. A warehouse on the industrial east side. Marcus's hands moved across the keyboard with purpose he hadn't felt in months. The warehouse wasn't just any warehouse. It was owned by a shell company which traced back to another company which finally led to a name. Vincent Cross. Vincent Cross. Former business partner of someone Daniel Rodriguez had prosecuted. Someone who'd sworn revenge. Sarah Chen stared at the evidence board in the precinct at 5 a.m. Robert Morrison's face. His brother Derek. The Rodriguez family. Pieces that should connect but didn't quite fit. Her phone rang. Unknown number. Detective Chen? The same male voice from before. Nervous but focused. Who is this? That doesn't matter. What matters is Emma Rodriguez. I think I know where they took her. Sarah's pulse quickened. How do you know this? Because I was in the room next door. I heard things. And I've been researching. There's a warehouse on East Industrial Drive. Number 347. It's owned by shell companies that trace back to Vincent Cross. Vincent Cross. Sarah's mind raced. The real estate developer Rodriguez prosecuted? The same one. Cross lost everything. His company. His reputation. He made threats. Look, I don't know if I'm right, but Emma doesn't have time for you to verify every detail. You need to check it now. Who are you? Sarah asked again. Why are you doing this? A long pause. Because I heard her crying. And because someone should. The line went dead. Sarah looked at her partner, Detective James Walsh. Get a team together. We're going to 347 East Industrial Drive. Based on an anonymous tip? Based on a lead. That's all we have. The warehouse looked abandoned. Broken windows. Graffiti-covered walls. The kind of place where bad things happened far from watching eyes. Sarah's team surrounded the building. Thermal imaging showed 3 heat signatures inside. 2 large, 1 small. Remember, Sarah said into her radio, child hostage. Nobody takes unnecessary risks. They breached the door simultaneously from 3 entrances. Inside, the warehouse was a maze of old equipment and shadows. Sarah moved through it with practiced silence, her weapon drawn, her heart hammering. Then she heard it. A child's whimper. She rounded a corner and saw them. Robert Morrison stood near a terrified Emma Rodriguez, his hand on her shoulder. Derek Morrison pointed a gun at the entrance. Police! Drop your weapon! Derek spun, his gun swinging toward Sarah. Everything happened in slow motion. Derek's finger on the trigger. Sarah's aim steady. The terrible calculus of who would fire first. Then a sound. Metal against metal. Derek turned, distracted for just a second. That's when Marcus Webb emerged from the shadows behind them, having entered through a broken window on the second floor. He swung a rusted pipe, connecting with Derek's arm. The gun clattered to the ground. Sarah didn't hesitate. She was on Derek in seconds, subduing him while her team secured Robert. Emma ran towards Sarah, sobbing, and Sarah caught her in her arms. "You're safe now, sweetheart. You're safe." She looked up to thank the man who'd helped, but Marcus was already backing away, disappearing into the maze of the warehouse. The reunion between Emma and her parents was everything Sarah loved about her job. Daniel Rodriguez held his daughter like he'd never let go, tears streaming down his face. His wife, Maria, kept repeating thank you to everyone who'd helped. But Sarah's mind was on the mystery man, the anonymous caller, the one who'd given them the location, the one who'd created the distraction that possibly saved her life. The motel manager, Frank, finally provided information. "Yeah, room 12. Checked in 3 days ago. Paid cash. Kept to himself. Name on the register says John Smith, but that's obviously fake." Sarah reviewed the motel's security footage. She saw him, mid-40s, hollow-eyed, moving like a man carrying the weight of the world. She saw him check in. Saw him sitting in his car for a long time before going to his room. Saw him leave his room the night of the rescue, heading toward the warehouse. She found his room key on the warehouse floor where he'd dropped it. Room 12. When she entered the room, she found it exactly as he'd left it. Laptop still open to his research. Pages of notes tracking the investigation he'd done on his own. And on the nightstand, a bottle of pills. Beside it, a note. Just 3 words. "Not today, darkness." Sarah's throat tightened. She understood then. This man had been at his lowest point, planning to end his own pain. But instead, he'd heard a child in danger and chose to help. She picked up his laptop. He'd forgotten it in his rush to get to the warehouse. The search history told a story. Job rejections, divorce proceedings, apartment listings he couldn't afford, but also mechanical engineering forums, problem-solving discussions, a mind that was designed to find solutions even when everything else was falling apart. Sarah made it her mission to find Marcus Webb. Not to arrest him, he'd broken into a warehouse, yes, but he'd saved a child. She wanted to help him, to thank him, to show him that his choice mattered. She tracked him through his credit card records, what few there were. A gas station charge in Springfield, 3 hours away. Then nothing. She called in favors, put out feelers. Someone had to have seen him. Finally, a break. A homeless shelter in Springfield reported a man matching his description. He'd volunteered there for 3 days, helping fix their broken heating system. He was quiet, the shelter manager said, but good with his hands. Fixed things we couldn't afford to repair. Then one morning, he was just gone. Sarah kept searching. She found him 2 weeks later in a small town called Riverside. Ironically, he was working at a local garage, living in a room above the shop. When she knocked on his door, Marcus looked resigned but not surprised. "How'd you find me?" "I'm a detective. It's what I do." She paused. "Can I come in?" Marcus's room was sparse but clean. A bed, a hot plate, some tools. The life of a man starting over from zero. "You're not here to arrest me?" Marcus asked. "For what?" "Trespassing while saving a child's life." Sarah sat down. "No, I'm here to say thank you, and to understand why." Marcus was quiet for a long time. "I was going to kill myself that night. Had the pills ready. Everything planned." Sarah had suspected, but hearing it still hit hard. "Then I heard Emma crying, and I thought if I was going to die anyway, maybe I could do one good thing first. Make my life mean something before it ended." "Your life already meant something," Sarah said gently. "Did it?" Marcus's laugh was bitter. "I'd lost everything. My job, my wife, my daughter barely knew me. I was a failure at everything that mattered. You saved a child's life. Yeah, And then I realized something in that warehouse. Marcus looked at his hands. When I was figuring out where they'd taken Emma, tracking down the information, solving the puzzle, I felt like myself again, like the person I was before everything fell apart. And when I was in that warehouse, creating that distraction, I wasn't thinking about my problems. I was thinking about her. Sarah nodded slowly. Purpose. Purpose, Marcus agreed. I'd lost mine, thought it was gone forever. But maybe I just needed to find a new one. Sarah leaned forward. The Rodriguez family wants to meet you, to thank you. Marcus shook his head. I don't need thanks. I know, but Emma does. She's been asking about the brave man who helped save her. Draws pictures of you. Wants to know if you're okay. That got to him. Sarah could see it in his eyes. There's something else, Sarah continued. Your skills. The way you tracked down that warehouse connected the dots we missed. That's valuable, Marcus. Really valuable. I'm not a cop. No. But we use civilian consultants. People with specialized skills who can help with investigations. The pay isn't amazing, but it's steady. And we have benefits, including therapy services, which I think might help. Marcus stared at her. You're offering me a job? I'm offering you a chance. Purpose. Your engineering mind, your problem-solving skills. They're exactly what we need for complex cases. Tracking financial records, analyzing evidence, finding patterns. Why would you do this? Because you earned it. And because I've learned that sometimes the people who've been through the darkness are the ones best equipped to help others find the light. 3 months later, Marcus Webb sat in a conference room at the precinct, surrounded by case files. He was officially a civilian analyst, helping with investigations that required technical expertise. But the real change wasn't his employment status. It was everything else. He'd met with Emma and her family. That meeting had been one of the hardest and best things he'd ever done. Emma had hugged him and asked if they could be friends. Daniel Rodriguez had offered more than thanks. He'd offered genuine friendship. Through Daniel, Marcus had reconnected with his own daughter, Lily. Started slowly. Coffee meetings supervised by his ex-wife. But as Lily saw her father regaining purpose, regaining himself, the walls started coming down. Dad's helping catch bad guys, she told her friends at school. Pride in her voice that Marcus thought he'd never hear again. He'd started therapy too, working through the depression, the loss, the failure, learning that his worth wasn't tied to his job title or his bank account or his marriage status. One evening, Sarah stopped by his desk. Got a tough one. Financial fraud case. Multi-layered shell companies hiding money. Could use your brain on it. Marcus smiled. 6 months ago, he'd been planning his own death. Now he was planning how to catch criminals. Let me see it, he said. Emma Rodriguez drew another picture. This one showed Marcus, Sarah, and herself holding hands under a rainbow. She was in art therapy now, working through the trauma of her kidnapping. But she insisted Marcus was a hero, and heroes deserved pictures. Her father, Daniel, had become more than Marcus's friend. He'd become his advocate. When Marcus's ex-wife tried to restrict his visitation rights again, Daniel represented him pro bono. The judge, hearing about Marcus's transformation and his role in saving Emma, granted him expanded custody. Sarah found herself changed too. She'd always been dedicated to her job, but Marcus reminded her why she'd become a detective in the first place. Not for the arrests or the accolades, but for the moments when you could change someone's trajectory. Save a life, yes, but also give someone a reason to save their own. She started a program at the precinct, Second Chances. It connected people with specialized skills who'd fallen on hard times with opportunities to use those skills in law enforcement consulting. Marcus was her first success story, but not her last. The warehouse where Emma was held was torn down. In its place, the city built a community center. The Rodriguez family donated funds. They named it Emma's Hope Center and dedicated it to helping families in crisis. At the opening ceremony, Marcus stood with his daughter Lily on one side and Emma on the other. Sarah stood nearby with Daniel and Maria Rodriguez. An unlikely family formed from tragedy. Marcus Webb walked into his new apartment. A real apartment, not a room above a garage. It wasn't fancy, but it was his. He'd earned it. His laptop sat on a desk by the window. Case files from the precinct. Evidence logs. Puzzles waiting to be solved. But also emails from Lily. Pictures she'd sent him from school. Plans for their weekend together. His phone rang. Sarah. Marcus, we need you. Missing person case. Teenage girl. Parents are frantic. Could be a runaway. Could be something worse. Send me everything you have, Marcus said, already opening his laptop. You know, Sarah said, you could say no sometimes. Take a break. I could, Marcus agreed. But why would I? Because this was his purpose now. Not the only thing that defined him. He was rebuilding his relationship with Lily, making actual friends, even dating occasionally. But this work, helping find people, solving the unsolvable, making a difference. This mattered. The pills from that night at the Riverside Motel were long gone. Marcus had kept the bottle, though. Empty now. A reminder of the choice he'd made. The moment when he'd heard a child crying and decided that someone else's pain mattered more than his own. That decision had saved Emma Rodriguez. But really, it had saved Marcus Webb too. Emma Rodriguez, now 7 years old, stood in front of her second-grade class for show and tell. This is a picture of my friend Marcus, she said, holding up her drawing. A bad thing happened to me once, but Marcus helped save me. He was sad too, really sad. But he decided to help me anyway, even though he was hurting. Her teacher, Mrs. Patterson, smiled gently. That was very brave of him. Yeah, Emma agreed. And you know what? After he helped me, he got less sad. My daddy says that sometimes helping other people helps us too. And Marcus says that even when things are really, really bad, you can always choose to do something good. She looked around at her classmates. So if you're ever sad, or if things are hard, remember that you can choose to help someone. And maybe that will help you too. The classroom was quiet. Then one kid raised his hand. Is Marcus like a superhero? Emma considered this seriously. Kind of. But not the kind with capes. The real kind. The kind that's just people choosing to be brave when it's hard. 5 years after that night at the Riverside Motel, Marcus Webb stood at a podium giving a talk about suicide prevention and finding purpose after loss. It wasn't something he'd ever imagined doing, but Sarah had convinced him that his story could help others. I was at my lowest point, he told the audience. I'd lost everything that I thought defined me, and I was ready to give up. But then I heard someone who needed help, and in that moment, I made a choice. Not to save myself, I wasn't thinking about that. I chose to try to help someone else. He paused, looking out at the faces watching him. Some struggling with their own darkness, he was sure. What I learned is this: purpose isn't something you find. It's something you choose. Even in your darkest moment, you can choose to matter, to make a difference, to help. And sometimes, by helping someone else find their way out of the darkness, you find your own way out too. In the audience, Sarah Chen sat next to Emma Rodriguez, now 11, and Lily Webb, now 16. 3 lives connected by one terrible night that became a turning point. After the talk, Emma approached Marcus. She was taller now, confident, the trauma of her kidnapping something she'd worked through with therapy and love. I wrote something for you, she said, handing him a folded paper. For your birthday. Marcus opened it. Inside was a poem. When darkness came to take your light, you heard a cry pierce through the night. You chose to help, you chose to care, you chose to show someone was there. You saved me when I needed most, but saved yourself from a haunting ghost. Now you help others find their way, turning night back into day. Thank you for that choice you made, for the foundation you helped laid. You showed me heroes can be real, and broken hearts can learn to heal. Marcus's eyes filled with tears. Thank you, Emma. She hugged him, No, thank you for everything. If you're watching this and you're struggling, please know your story isn't over. Like Marcus, you might be at a point where everything feels hopeless. But choices matter. Small acts of kindness matter. Reaching out matters. If you're in crisis, please call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, 988, or text HELLO to 741741 to reach the crisis text line. Your life has value. Your story matters. And sometimes the purpose you're looking for finds you when you least expect it, in a moment when you choose to help someone else, even when you're barely holding on yourself. Marcus Webb thought his life was over. Instead, it was just beginning. If this story touched you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear it. And let me know in the comments. What's a moment when helping someone else helped you too? Remember, 3 minutes. One choice. Infinite possibilities. Thank you for watching. See you in the next story.